spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we're here to tell you guys about some weird stuff.
Indeed we are. I'm pretty excited. I gotta say, you sound a little bit weird today, Robin. I don't know what it is.
I have a bubble in my throat.
That's probably exactly what it is, actually. But yes, welcome to episode 137. Kind of excited for this one. I hope you are too. Robin, what are you going to be covering this week?
All right, so this week I'm going to be visiting or revisiting a topic that I haven't touched in like 40 episodes. So
it's been a minute.
So I'm going to be doing some more SCPs, bruh.
SCPs are really fun. I really like SCPs. It's kind of funny because I'm actually going to be revisiting a topic that we haven't visited in, I think, 50 episodes, maybe more,
really?
Maybe closer to 60.
Has it really been that long?
It really has. I think 80 was the last one. So
if they don't know what we're talking about.
I'm going to be covering, I mean, they've seen the title of the episode, but I'm covering Paranormal Games. And this is Paranormal Games 4. So yeah, it's going to be really fun.
4.
Wow. Thank you for that echo.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm going to be going first this episode, so I think I'm going to jump right into it. This week, I wanted to cover something that we actually talked about with some of the viewers on the live show 2 weeks ago during story time. Someone had asked us if we had ever covered one of the more famous paranormal games before, and I told them no, and they had a very definitive, like, oh, this is where it came from. And it made me think, I should really just cover it because there's multiple things about where it came from. I've researched this before. It'll be really fun to compile into a topic. And then after writing a page and a half of my script, I asked Robin, like, hey, have you covered this? She's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. She looked into it. Sure enough, she had already covered Bloody Mary.
But and the only time I realized that I had covered it is because he sent me a picture that he was going to post on, because we post pictures on our Instagram each episode, and he sent me a picture that I swear we had already posted.
And I picked that picture because it didn't look familiar, and I was like, I don't think this one's been posted. I don't know why the other ones are looking familiar, but I sent it to her, and she's like, let me check my script. Sure enough, we'd already covered Bloody Mary. Sure enough. So, yeah, that sucks. So I had to start over. I pulled that out of my script, but I was dedicated to the topic because I had already found another game that I wanted to cover. So I figured I'd just find a third, which would wind up being technically my second. And, yeah, it wound up working out, I think. So I am usurping this segment from Robin. This is one of her regular segments. 1, 2, and 3 were all Robin, if I'm not mistaken. But then again, apparently I can't remember a thing, so who knows? But I now present to you, wonderful listeners, Paranormal Games IV, otherwise known as 4. That's a GameStop joke for anyone who's ever worked at GameStop, because kids would always come in and ask for Grand Theft Auto IV because they didn't know what Roman numerals were. And if you're not old enough to know what a Roman numeral is, you shouldn't be playing that friggin' game. Just saying. So, all right, let's dive into this. Something that I'll usually work later into my scripts is the disclaimer that this could all be bullshit. I figured I would lead off with it because this is something that definitely needs to be said for both of my games. The first paranormal game I'm going to cover is one that actually originated across the pond, according to legend. And I'm not talking about the UK. I'm actually talking about Japan, that other pond. The Pacific Ocean can be a pond too. Okay. We don't say that often enough when we're talking about our friends to that direction of the globe. So the game we're going to be covering is known as, and I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly, Tsuji Udara. I sent it to Robin and asked her if she would give me the pronunciation, and she did. I don't say the last word properly.
Tsuji Udara.
It's U-D... I don't even remember anymore. I think it's U-R-A. It's
U-R-A.
It's just
U-R-A.
And you say it differently than I say it, so it's just Tsuji Udara. Now, although this game is supposed to have been around for quite some time, the rules are a little bit more modern, which makes it seem like it is more from the modern age. The technique that we're going to go over, or the game itself, I should say, is also known in the UK, but there it's referred to as, according to the internet, the Crossroads Divination. And in plenty of other places, this game is referred to, including the US, as the Fortune Game. And that's right, dear listeners, you heard Crossroads. We're going on a road trip, and it involves a crossroad, and I think it's safe to say this is definitely some supernatural shit now.
Is this where we, summon Crowley and...
It's kind of weird, because, I'll read you what happens, and it definitely has a real Crowley vibe, but you're not making a deal or anything like that with the Crossroads demon and burying something in the middle. They had to run out of fucking boxes to put shit into that show because of how many deals they made with Crossroad demons. But anyways.
Dude, Altoids. Altoids are the best boxes.
I guess that's a good point, but then you have to find something small that's like personal value. I can't even remember what you have to put in it. Anyways, okay, we're going to stick to the fortune game is what I'm going to refer to it going forward because it's easier for me to say. I would like to toss out the disclaimer that Scaryish does not recommend playing this or any other paranormal game, including the one that is to come. Any bumps, bruises, scrapes, cuts, murders, or vanished people incurred during the playing of these games are not our fault. That shit's on you.
Oh my god.
So according to the rules for the fortune game, you need a few items to play. You will need a comb and an object to cover/conceal your entire face. And, of course, you will also need a crossroads to go to. So, an intersection of two roads that forms a rudimentary lowercase t or a cross, that is what you're looking for. Or if you tilt it sideways, an X. There you go. I just described a crossroads for you.
Is that the name of that Britney Spears movie?
Crossroads?
Yeah.
It is. There's also another movie called Crossroads that is much better with Ralph Macchio, where he's a guitar player who goes and finds some super famous dude. I've talked about this movie before.
And then plays karate?
No, he doesn't. Plays karate. I wish someone would come up and judo chop you right now, even though judo and karate are different. But he basically finds out his idol was famous because he made a deal with a Crossroads demon so he could play guitar really well.
Huh.
And then the guy eventually tells him, like, I don't have a soul. I'm about to die. I'm going to hell. So he goes to the Crossroads, finds the demon, and he's actually talented. He didn't sell his soul to become talented, and he challenges the demon for his soul. He can have it in exchange for if he wins, he gets the old man's soul back. So they have a guitar riff off, and it's fucking awesome. It's a super cool movie.
It's based off that Tenacious D song.
Yep, that's exactly where it came from. Anyways, getting back, you need a crossroads of your own to go to.
It's just... Sorry. It was just like this reference led into this reference, led into this reference. I'm tying it all in.
It's like she's listened to Scaryish before, just saying. So not unlike other paranormal games that we've talked about in the past, it is apparently required to be played at night. In addition to that, your likelihood of having the game quote-unquote work is higher if the game is played between midnight and 3:03 a.m.
What? 3:03? I love that band.
Not sure why, but hey, if I would have thought of it, I would have worked in some stupid song from 3:03, but here we are. All right, now as we get into the details of the game, it should become obvious that this game is actually kind of dangerous, and I don't want anyone out there to hear this and be like, I'm going to go do it, and then just go and do it without considering the fact that you could get hurt doing this. So I think all these games have some level of danger, but hopefully just by listening to this, you will understand that this game is actually a lot more dangerous than those ones. It is definitely riskier than, say, the elevator game in the practical sense.
The elevator game's kind of creepy.
It is kind of creepy, but at the same time, it's not nearly as inherently dangerous as what I'm about to tell people not to do, despite the fact I'm giving you explicit directions.
All right, so
the legend states that you are to travel to the crossroads late at night. I've given you the time frame. Most of the sites I've seen, because the internet never lies, state that the more remote the location, the better your chances are at having this be successful. I think, in particular, it's because the more remote, the less likely a normal human being is to come along and screw up the game, so to speak.
All right.
Most sites do state, though, as a caveat, that this will work, whether it's rural, urban, or suburban. All you need is a crossroads and to be there at the right time of night. And I will say, it's even creepier if you go to like a really busy intersection in a city and no one happens to show up until the shit goes down. Not saying to do it.
What shit goes down?
Please don't do it. So, once you've reached the crossroads, you'll need to exit whatever vehicle you took to get there. If you walked, cool, you're already past that step. Make sure you get out of whatever vehicle you're in and stand in the middle of the intersection. I would like to remind you now, standing in the middle of an intersection at night, not in a vehicle, is very, very, very dangerous. So just don't do it. But for those of you who want to know the rules, make sure you have your objects with you. This is very important. One of them involves the summoning, and the other involves keeping you safe.
It sounds scary.
It is scary. So once you're standing there, you need to stroke your comb with your thumb. So like
you
the
have
bristles.
To bring a comb.
So
or a
yes,
brush.
I already said that. That was already in the rules. So stroke the brush or the comb. It's a comb. Stroke whatever. Comb, brush, whatever. Stroke it with your thumb. Like imagine the sound it makes when you run your thumb over the bristles.
Got it.
That's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to do that 3 times. Okay? You just want to make that noise. And while you're doing this, you need to speak this phrase 3 times. Suji ura, grant me a true response. You say that 3 times as you're brushing the bristles on your comb/brush. There are apparently options on how you say this. There was a site that actually broke down that some people believe that this legend doesn't work if you have like the mixed language, but that the legend apparently states that it doesn't matter what language you say it in, if it's all one, all the other, half of one and half of the other, that you're free to say it however you want. If whatever your personal belief is on it, you can translate it all into Japanese and say it that way. If you want to translate it all into English, then you're supposed to say, inside the same, grant me a true response, as opposed to the other. So you say that 3 times as you brush your bristles 3 times, and once you're done petting your comb and speaking your words, you now enter the phase of the ritual I call the waiting game, because you just stand there and you wait. And here lies the most practically dangerous part of this paranormal game is, once this part is over, you are literally just supposed to stand there in the middle of a crossroads late at night and wait. And what you are waiting for is the stranger. You're waiting for this stranger to pass by. It does not work if someone passes by that you know. If someone comes by that you know, this ritual has failed. Now, for clarification, this person is supposed to be on foot. I didn't see anything in the ritual about the person approaching on a motorcycle, bicycle, in a car, in an 18-wheeler. None of that. It's supposed to be someone walking on foot. But it does not explicitly state that if they approach the intersection in a vehicle and then get out and approach you, that they are not the stranger. So no matter what, obviously keep your eyes open. You look like you have a question now.
I'm just like, this is weird.
It is weird.
It's very creepy.
So if no one shows up after you've done this, then it's fake. Or I'm sorry, failed. The ritual has failed. However, if a stranger approaches you at the crossroads, the ritual has worked. And as soon as you notice the stranger approaching, you don't eyeball them, you don't look to see who they are. As soon as you realize that's a stranger, I don't know them, you must, absolutely must, cover your face with whatever you brought to cover your face. Some websites will recommend a bunch of different items, scarves, hoodies that you can put on backwards, bunch of other stuff.
That's
but
terrifying.
You have got to cover your face, which leads to you now standing in the middle of the intersection with your face covered and the inability to see pretty much anything except maybe your peripherals. But you should basically point your body at the stranger and then cover your face. And keep your face covered.
This is really scary.
Yeah, it is. I must underscore this because it was in bold on every place I found these rules. Do not uncover your face in front of the stranger. When the stranger is close enough to you that you feel comfortable enough that by speaking to them they will hear you, you then ask them to tell you your fortune. Now, there aren't any rules for how to ask except for one key word that I found everywhere, including a Japanese website that I had to translate. Politely. You ask politely. And I know for some folks out there, most likely not our listeners, but for some folks, y'all are kind of dicks. So you're going to want to be nice about this. So don't go with a, yo dog, tell me my fortune. It needs to be more like a, greetings and salutations, sir dog. Might I request you tell me what my future holds for me? That's just me recommending something. However you'd like to be polite is completely up to you. But be polite. I underscore this, be polite. If they do not answer you, do not request it again. They heard you. They just decided not to answer. Just wait for them to leave. And once they have left, you can remove your face covering.
How do you know they're gone? What if they're just standing there silently?
Listen. Listen very, very, very closely. If they're standing there silently, you can deduce, well, they haven't moved, therefore they are still there. So stay there with your face covering and wait for them to leave. Once they have left, you can take your face covering off. And this is good news for you if you're really all about this ritual. The ritual has not failed. You have passed the test of not being a dick, basically, and you wait for the stranger to appear again, or a different stranger to appear. And the same goes for if they say no. If they tell you like, nah, dog, I'm good. No fortune for you. If they tell you no, wait for them to leave. Once they've left, you can take off your face covering or whatever you have. And again, the ritual can continue. You just wait for the stranger again or a different stranger.
So is it kind of like different spirits from the other world, like, are coming, and maybe they don't know your fortune, and so it's like, you gotta wait for the other guy. The other guy knows what's up.
Pretty much.
I don't know.
Or it's like this person's passing through. This is the way I thought of it, is that there's speculation as to who the stranger is. If it's the same entity, like as they pass through the world, so to speak, maybe their way of traveling overlaps with our world in a weird way that has them pass through our fixed point multiple times. But to them, they're walking in a straight line. You know what I mean?
All right.
So maybe they come upon you again further in your journey and see that you're dedicated to having your fortune told and decide, like, all right, this time I'll tell them their fortune.
All right.
Either way, you stand there and wait for them to show back up again. Now, if the stranger agrees to answer you, shut the fuck up and listen very closely to what they have to say, because apparently they're going to tell you something that's very true. And while you're listening, do not remove your face cover. Once your fortune has been delivered, thank them, wait until the stranger has left, and then uncover your face. Now, if you're thinking about actually doing this, know that it's almost certainly bullshit, and standing in the middle of the road late at night is very, very stupid. That said, the rules state you can bring others with you. Only one person can play at a time, but you're allowed to bring bystanders.
And they can't see what you see.
No, that's not true. They can see what you see as well. They just cannot participate. They're not allowed to speak to the stranger. They're also not allowed to look at the stranger. They need to bring their own face coverings and never, ever, ever look at the stranger. Your friend can be murdered just as easily as you, apparently. So just don't look at the stranger. That said, there's no exact penalty for taking off your face covering and looking at the stranger aside from the general warning of bad things happening, because it's believed that the stranger is either a very powerful ghost, very powerful demon, or the devil himself. And that's who you're asking your fortune from. And if you don't abide by their rules, they can fuck your shit up. That's all I'm saying. So this is the first paranormal game we're going to be covering. I hope you've understood the rules, and I also hope you don't do it because it's just foolish.
It is. That, like, do not stand in the middle of the fucking intersection. That's the stupidest thing you could ever do. Like,
if you're gonna bring a friend, a bystander, just have everyone positioned where they can, like, block their view from the stranger and everyone can look in every other direction. You know what I mean? So that you can make sure there's
like
no cars
sentries.
approaching. It's just, there's ways that if you're stupid enough to do this, you can keep yourself safe. I just would say don't bother
Don't do
doing it.
it.
Especially because this next one is much easier and much, much more dangerous if you're dumb.
oh, Lord.
So,
Lord.
well, dangerous in quotes this time, not practically dangerous. So, I'm moving on to my second one now. But a word before we get into it. So the thing that I honestly hate about internet culture / creepypastas specifically is there are a lot of folks out there who will use this creative outlet to channel a work of fiction onto the internet so that folks can give them feedback and say whether or not they like it. And if someone does like it and their story gains some sort of an acclaim or a reputation about being good, then other people, consumers of that material, when they decide they like it, they're going to say that it's real. And that shit drives me nuts. If someone clearly marks, hey, this is fake as shit, y'all, like, it's just a work of fiction, then all of a sudden people start saying, like, no, dude, it's totally real. It's like, no, it's not. And I bring this up because we did cover this, particularly in the Slender Man episode, which was episode 79, because the mindset that a paranormal story can be real can lead to real world, like, bad things happening.
Yeah.
So, who's to say, though, that pretty much every paranormal game out there didn't start like that in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
Someone came up with a story, a spooky story to tell, where they're like, it's all made up. Someone else wound up telling it and said that it's real, and the next thing you know, you have an urban legend, and that's where it came from. So when I was looking for the next one, I was kind of annoyed at how many of the things I came across had creepypastas attached to them, and a lot of them call out, like, this is totally fake, and other websites just say, like, this is totally real. And I'm like, I'm getting so annoyed right now, but I wound up finding a really, really good one. Like, really good. So after I get through the game, I'm going to give you a little bit more on top of it that makes it even creepier for me. All right? So.
Oh, God, okay.
Normal disclaimer, this could all be bullshit.
All
this
right.
one is called The Gambler's Game. And when I found this one, I thought, this is obviously fake. So this one can only be played by you, yourself, and that's it. One person. One person. You can't have anyone else in the room with you. There are no exceptions. There's no bystanders allowed. It is just you. I will say this one is easier to do. You don't have to stand in the middle of a road. And did I mention how bad of an idea that is? Don't stand in the middle of a road. All you need for this one, for the Gambler's Game, is one quiet room. And I put good luck to the parents out there. One quiet room, one table, 1 pack of playing cards, and 2 chairs.
No. This is like the King's game.
It is very much like it.
Fuck that.
The instructions don't state that you have to do this at night. I suggest doing it at night just because it's creepier, preferably on a night with a thunderstorm, but that's just me tossing out suggestions for some nice ambiance. Set up your table in your quote-unquote quiet room. Make sure the chairs are placed across from one another so that if you had 2 people actually sitting in them, they would be staring at each other. Take your playing cards out of the package and shuffle them. Not half-ass shuffling, the real deal. Shuffle those cards. It should be noted that there are multiple warnings about cheating in this story or this rule or this ritual. Do not cheat. Before we move forward, I would like to warn you about the stakes. I almost put this at the end of it, and then I realized that some folks might just decide to do this. And on the slim chance that this is somehow real, you should probably make an informed decision and know what you're playing for. So, you're playing for some pretty serious stakes. Here's the deal. You're wagering your life. And according to the internet, you're wagering your soul as well. So you could die after this, or you could die later, but in a lot of cases it's stating that you're betting your soul against this unknown entity known as the gambler. And I know what you're all probably thinking right now. If you have some sense to you, fuck that. Like, I don't care how good you are at Crazy Eights. That's just a bad decision. But I did say I'd let you make an informed bad decision. So if you win, you get the ability to win any gamble moving forward for the rest of your life. So once you've shuffled these cards up, you can then choose whatever game you want to play. Has to be a card game apparently, but you get to choose whatever game you want to play, and you deal the cards to yourself and the empty seat and the empty place on the table. Then, prior to beginning the game, once the cards are all dealt, you face the other chair and say the words, "Let's play." At this point, you may feel a chill in the air, and if you do, that's normal, apparently, and it means it's time to play. If you do not feel the chill, you're not supposed to proceed. Apparently it hasn't worked. Not sure how long you have to wait to reset. There's no rules about that. Maybe you need to shuffle again. Maybe you need to leave the room. Maybe you need to set up again. No rules about that. But it's not going to work. There's no one there. Side note, some sites say deal yourself first, then state let's play, then deal the gambler his hand. Now here's the thing about this that really annoys me is that this thing was clearly written by someone who either doesn't pay attention to details or doesn't play card games. Because you always deal 1 card per player at a time. You always deal to the left of the dealer until everyone has a full hand. And that's how it works. Almost every single card game is like that. And for a paranormal game that states that you must follow the rules because the gambler is a stickler for them, it is really annoying that the instructions screw up the deal from the get-go.
Really?
Like, deal yourself, say the words, deal the gambler. No game out there has you deal yourself a full hand, then deal someone else a full hand.
Because that's cheating.
You don't get to do it like that.
Yeah.
You just don't. So, I'm just saying that some of the rules say to do it that way. I'm not trying to take the gambler's side if this entity exists. I'm just saying they'd probably appreciate if you dealt the fucking cards right. So, deal. Say, let's play. Wait for the chill. If the chill happens, you may now begin. And begin the game as it should. It's all dependent on whatever game you picked.
It's like a sick game of war.
If you want, sure. But I would like to point out that most games start with the person to the left of the dealer leading, which would mean that the gambler would go first if it's a turn-based game. War or something where you just both put a random card down at the same time. So that one's pretty easy to do. But if it's a turn-based game, I say start with the gambler. Some rules say start with yourself. No game has you deal and start with yourself ever. So if you're playing a game the way it's meant to be played, which you're supposed to start with a gambler. When it's the gambler's turn, play his hand for him, but do it randomly. So the cards stay face down, so you're just basically letting fate decide, you know? You're just going by chance. I will take this opportunity to remind you, do not fucking cheat. The gambler will know. Play out the game however you need to, and you play the gambler's cards face down and yours as you normally would while you attempt to win the game. And at the conclusion of the game, playing completely fairly against basically an unseen opponent, if you're the victor, obviously you've won. That's what victor means. Congratulations. You now must take the top card off the deck, assuming you chose a game that has a deck remaining after its conclusion. Take the top card and slice it across the pointer finger of your right hand. And if you draw blood, you will have the ability to win any gamble for the rest of your life, provided you make that gamble with your right hand. Like if you're drawing cards, use your right hand. If you're betting chips, use your right hand. If you're throwing dice, use your right hand. If you lose, you are fucked. It states that the deal cannot be undone no matter what. It also states that the gambler claims his prize slowly and painfully. Another site said something along the lines of excruciatingly. Although, if you're gambling with your soul, slowly really means eternity. So it's just, I guess, kind of how you perceive that. The rule also states that there is nothing you can do to convince the gambler to break the deal once you've lost. So, this obviously sounds like bullshit, you know? I'm going through the rules very meticulously because if I'm the gambler, say I die, this is all real, and they're like, well, you want to be the gambler? Like, the last guy quit, he got really bored. I'm like, fuck yes, because I am a stickler for rules, and I love card games. So, now that we've gone through that, and it does still sound like bullshit, I want to point out a few things. This definitely sounds like a creepypasta. It also sounds like the movie Ready or Not, which is really good, by the way. I love that movie. We've already watched it twice. I totally watched it a third time. Here's the thing. There is a creepypasta about it. Go figure. Not shocking. You know what else? There's a legend based off of this about a gambler who would come to town and allow folks to play him in any game of their choosing for very, very high stakes that would increasingly get higher and higher, including that of forfeiting themselves entirely to this gambler. This is not bullshit. I looked this up. In the Journal of American Folklore, Volume 2, the Volume 2 was from April to June of 1889. I found a published version of this that was saved for posterity. A myth was published in 1889 that had been passed down by the Navajo, the Native American Navajo tribes, for, at this point in time, over 1,000 years.
Wow.
This is not bullshit. The legend is about a gambler named Naquilpie, which I'm probably not saying right, and I apologize, but this person is the gambler, person in quotes. The name Naquilpie translates to he who wins men at play. That's what this actual name of this legend, of this character in this legend translates to.
All right.
Someone who wins men at play, which is just a really creepy name to have. And this person, this gambler, traveled to Chaco Canyon, which is actually a place located in New Mexico. Traveled there long, long ago, and he challenged the people there to games of chance of their choosing, claiming that he was a master at all games of chance.
Wow.
Let them pick the game, and then, one by one, defeated all of them for all of their possessions. They wound up betting everything they owned. And then they came back for seconds. They came back to play him again, to win back their shit. And they started gambling their spouses as collateral for their stuff, or their children, or
That's
just
fucked.
themselves in general. And one by one, they all lost. And soon the gambler had claimed them all. This is the actual legend that's been passed down, that was published 130 years ago, that had been passed down for over 1,000 years.
That's really crazy.
It's super fucking creepy, dude. He told these people, once they quote-unquote belonged to him, that he wanted them to build him like a bunch of great houses. And they had to oblige. And they did. And in that place where he collected these people, and it was built sometime between 945 AD and 1070 AD, is a place known as Chetro Kettle, which is a Puebloan great house. It's a 400-room massive structure built like a Pueblo that has over 1,500 feet of perimeter wall, and it's estimated that it took 500,000 man-hours to complete.
What?
It's still there. It's
What?
enormous. It's
Is
one
it
of
haunted?
It's one of the largest Native American structures, and this story completely revolves around how this structure was created. Like, it's about specifically this entity and how he would show up and do this, and that he once claimed an entire city of people and then forced them to create this place for him. So I don't know if it's haunted, but the fact that that's the legend about it makes me think that I definitely don't want to go stay there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Because what if he shows up?
Exactly. Or what if he's just like, well, it's an evil place, so evil things are going to happen there. I'm not going to stay there, but, we made it pretty evil. So it was first excavated in the Americas in 1920. And when they excavated, they found ancient gambling artifacts.
Shut the front
all
door.
over the city, which totally feeds into this whole myth or legend, and it's one of those things where, yes, this was published before this place was excavated.
That's so crazy.
And they found it, and maybe it was just a city where they just made that up because they knew people there like to gamble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Native American culture and Native American mythology is incredibly rich, which there's so much to hear about and learn about. And something that I find kind of shocking here is that this is a real place that had a myth within their own culture before they were telling stories to anyone else, that this place that actually existed was built by people who lost themselves to a mysterious and evil entity.
Yeah.
And if these people actually existed, which they did, someone had to build this place and someone had to live there once it was built. Why would they ever perpetuate a story like that when it's about themselves? Native Americans are not a type of culture, and there's not any types of culture I've ever heard of that would circulate a legend about themselves being cursed.
Yeah.
Unless it's legitimately a cautionary tale. Like, men, women, and children were all supposed to be cursed by this. They're all supposed to have been claimed by this gambler. And it feels like really creepy. It's really bizarre. So I'll go ahead and end this by saying, yeah, this could totally all be fake. But this one's like way too creepy for me to even want to fuck around with. But if I was going to, the game that I would pick to play is No Limit Texas Hold'em. Because there's no exchanging of cards. The game is already played completely face down. So you wouldn't have to play the gambler's cards. It's just when you're done with the flop, the turn, and the river, you flip them both up, and you see who won. And it just sort of plays out. And even if you didn't want to do just one hand, if you wanted to deal chips out, like it was an actual tournament style and pick the exact same amount of chips,
yeah,
the blinds would force you to commit chips based off of the minimums. And on top of that, say you want to put all of your money in and just end it quickly, you're still doing it against blind cards. So it is completely up to chance or fate, which is sort of what this whole myth or legend is about. And the game basically plays out on its own. But like I said, I'm not going to do that. I think Robin's game of choice would be War, because she already brought it up, which is another one that plays out by chance completely.
I just grew up playing that with my sister a lot.
It's a super fun game. Robin also doesn't know how to shuffle, so it would make this a little bit hard for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, my spooky friends, is Paranormal Games 4.
Nice.
We don't recommend you play them.
Yeah. Yeah, those are very scary. I would not want to play either of those.
Right on.
Big ol' nope.
I found the second one very interesting when I found this Navajo legend, and then I found the actual location. I was reading all this stuff about how many man hours got put in. 500,000 man hours is a lot of man hours, you know? And the fact that they built this thing and then circulated a rumor like, yep, it's built off of the people who were claimed by this horrible entity. I was like, holy shit, this is totally not just some bullshit creepypasta from 2015. Like, this is a legend that's been perpetuated for a really, really, really long time.
Yeah.
So, fun stuff. Hope you all enjoyed it. But before we move on to our next topic, we're going to take a really quick commercial break.
And we are back. Welcome back to my half of the episode. Again, this week I'm going to do SCPs. If you folks aren't familiar or aware of what they are, head on over to episode 84 and listen to that one to get the lowdown on SCPs, the SCP basics. And I covered a couple of interesting ones, I thought. And I'm just going to tell you folks about some SCPs that I find fascinating that I found today. So,
before you jump into it, can you recap a few small details for me?
So I'm just going to remind you guys of the classes of SCPs. So they're just these creatures, these entities, you know, not necessarily creatures. But I'm going to tell you guys about the different classes of SCPs, because their classes are like their level of danger or their ability to be captured type thing.
And these are supposed to be fictional, correct? But they're just really, really creative and creepy.
They're just really cool, yeah.
And some of them feel like they're based on other myths.
On real things,
So here's the one thing I really want to know. What does it stand for? Because I've already forgotten. It's been 40 episodes.
So SCP means secure, contain, protect. And it's just the whole, there's this whole SCP Foundation thing. And it's just this huge really in-depth. It's more in-depth than creepypasta type stuff. It's really cool. And so the levels, like the classes, there are a few different classes. I'm just going to go over like the basic ones. So it goes from safe to Euclid to Keter, which is the most difficult of the SCPs to contain. So it goes in ascending difficulty. The first one that I'm going to cover is SCP-1471, and this one is classified as Euclid, so that usually means that it's unpredictable or sentient. It's not super safe. They don't really understand it exactly, and usually it goes... anything that they don't really put in any of the other categories goes into this category. So most of the ones that you'll see on the website are categorized as Euclid, in my experience so far. This SCP goes like this. There is a mobile app that takes, this is really, really strange, just a very exact number. It takes 9.8 megabytes of data to install, right?
Oh no. Is this Bubble Bobble style game that you've been playing lately?
I love Bubble Bubble.
What's the name of the app you've been playing? Give it a shout out. You've been playing the shit out of it.
Angry Birds Dream Blast. Anyway, it's this app. It's free to download. It's named Malo, M-A-L-O, version 1.0.0. And this app in the App Store has no developer to it. There's no known origin, and it skips the approval process through when you upload an app, right? You have to get approved in order for people to download it. So this thing skips the approval process and is just available for download to everyone. And once you download it, it can't be removed. Once it's in, it's in. It leaves no icons, no shortcuts, or any clues that it exists at all on your phone. And it's 9.8 megs. That's like...
nothing.
Yeah, that's 3 songs.
It's a grocery list.
It's a grocery list. So it's in your phone. You got it now. Once it's been downloaded, things start to pop off. So SCP-1471 sends the end user individual images via text every 3 to 6 hours. And these images will have SCP-1471-A somewhere in the photo. So, like, SCP-1471 is the app. The A is, like, the entity within the app.
So, like, there's an app, and then within the app is, like, Bagul, so to speak. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. That's a really good...
that sounds really sinister.
Oh, that's a good joke. All right. So these images will have this entity somewhere in the photo, whether that be in the foreground or the background. It doesn't really seem to matter. They're just there. And it looks like, this thing looks like a humanoid figure with the skull of what looks like some type of canine animal. And the picture that goes with this SCP that I saw, we'll post it on Instagram and Facebook and stuff later. It's very Wendigo-esque, because it has like long scraggly hair. It's got the skull thing going on. And that's just what I thought of when I saw it. So you're getting chased by this Wendigo.
I agree. You sent that picture in the chat. We have a chat between Robin and I, shocker. And we'll just bombard each other with pictures Monday night while we're writing our scripts, and it's like, she sent one, I was like, what the fuck? It's terrifying. So now I understand why she sent that one.
Right. So the first 24 hours after installation, you see the delivery of these photos. Each photo shows the location that's frequented by the end user. So if you happen to visit this ice cream shop a lot, you're going to get pictures of this thing at this ice cream shop or whatever, you know?
That's almost kind of cute. It's like, I like doing the things you do.
All right. You think it's cute? Okay. After 48 hours, the images start showing locations that were recently visited by you. So say you went and got your car repaired just earlier today or this past weekend. It's there, you know? And then after 72 hours, the photos seem to be showing things in real time. So the photos will show the person with SCP-1471-A somewhere close to them. And just imagine that, where you get these photos periodically, and then this thing is getting closer and closer.
This is really terrifying.
And closer. And each time you look at your phone, each time you look at this new text message, this new picture, say they're in the window of the clothing store that you just went to. Or the next one is you sitting outside a restaurant, and then there's this skull creature standing behind the table that's right behind you.
This sounds terrifying. I would just like to point out that a fuckboy will still reply with a picture of their dick, regardless of how terrifying this entity is.
Oh my god. But yeah, so this thing's just getting closer and closer and closer to you. And then at over 90 hours after the installation of the app, after continuously receiving these images, you begin to start seeing this entity out of the corner of your eye. And so maybe you'll see them in the reflection of windows and the reflection of mirrors, or maybe at that very restaurant table that you're sitting at. You look down the reflection of the table, it's there, you know? How fucking terrifying is that? All right. It's just, when I read this, I was like, what the fuck?
This has gone from like kind of cool to like super, super creepy.
So if nothing is done and the user continues to be exposed to this app and keeps looking at these pictures, there's no coming back from having been affected by it. And those that have suffered long-term exposure to this SCP have reported the entity attempting to visually communicate with them. So they're trying to tell you something, or they're trying to show you something. But the people aren't able to interpret what they're trying to say or what type of message they're trying to put across. It's important that the person that has installed this app stop any visual exposure to the images within the first 90 hours. So you just need to stop looking at these pictures.
So just don't open the text message.
Yeah.
The battle is won.
You just need to get that shit out of your life. But I feel like there's this pull to it where you just feel like you have to look, you know, especially
just break your phone or give your friend your phone and be like, yo, switch me phones. Oh yeah. Then you're fucking over your friend.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't do it to a friend. Do it to someone you don't like.
Oh my God. So in order to contain the entity, all mobile devices that have had the app installed need to be confiscated, and then they're analyzed by the agents at the SCP Foundation. This whole thing is so cool. I think it's really neat.
Obviously, they don't exist, but this is still really awesome.
So the batteries get removed from the phones. Then the phones are placed in a secure storage facility, like a specifically designated facility. And there are so many that they're so detailed because they have numbers for the storage facilities, and they're named. It's really cool. And then app stores are monitored to prevent future sales of the app, which is smart, but you can't control it forever because someone's going to do it. There's no way you can stop it, you know? Just saying, I don't know what I would do if something like that happened to me. It's super terrifying. I can't even imagine having a bunch of pictures and there's just this weird thing that you see in the pictures and it just keeps getting closer and in different places, you know? Like the movie Shutter. The movie Shutter freaks me out because it's kind of that thing where there's a bunch of photographs and then you see the small thing in the photograph. What?
I just imagine that the text message how it says like image dot blah 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 blah.
Are you just saying like, look at this?
Yep, it would be like, look at this photograph.
But if you
time or two it haunts my life.
I would definitely recommend watching Shutter, both the American and I think it's a Taiwan, no, not Taiwanese, like a Thai version. They're both really good. Shutter is just a very, very good movie. I really like it. It freaked me out the first time I ever watched it. But that's what this reminds me of. And I just want to say, just don't download random apps.
Yeah.
Okay?
This one is more dangerous, I think, for the elderly who don't understand their phones or their computers,
right,
who are always downloading stuff. Like, they think that pop-up is actually a virus blocker when it's really the virus.
What's the, that one cartoon thing that you always quote? Telling them to stop all the downloading.
Stop all the downloading. It's way deep cut internet, like back before YouTube, I think. When
it's
it was
like E-Bombs World.
It was E-Bombs World, where they took clips from G.I. Joe and they redubbed them, and it was just ridiculous bullshit. Where just some guy comes out and just yells at the kids like, "Hey kid, I'm a computer. Stop all the downloading." We need that message right now in our lives,
God.
I think.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right, so this next SCP that I'm going to cover for this episode is SCP-895, and their classification is also Euclid. So like I'm saying, a lot of these are classified that generalized one. So this one is an ornate oak coffin recovered from a redacted mortuary after reports of strange footage was captured on their surveillance cameras. And those employed at the mortuary had no clue as to where the coffin had come from or how it had even been transported to that particular location. So SCP Foundation agents go pick this thing up, and while they're there, they open the coffin only to find it empty. And then something happens. People see something, but it's noted that the coffin is then to remain closed at all times.
Okay. Good rule of thumb. Don't open coffins at mortuaries. Got it.
Any video and audio recording equipment within the 50-meter or approximately 150-foot radius, anything within that experiences strange disruptions that can be related to disturbing hallucinations. On the page, on this SCP's page, there's like a little bit at the bottom where it's like a transcript where they have what people are saying.
Okay.
Where people are watching the camera while the agents are going to check out the coffin. And the people that are looking at the camera see fucked up stuff going on. Whereas the people that are on the floor next to the coffin are like, dude, I don't know what you're seeing. And the people watching the camera are like freaking out. Anyway, so when you're within 5 meters, with any equipment within 5 meters, any footage captured can cause severe psychological trauma and hysteria. And it seems to only affect those that watch the footage.
So it's like your grandparents just going at it.
Oh, God.
See? There you go. Now you know what you'll see at 5 meters, y'all.
Oh, God. Stop. That's not even funny. Okay. So... So it doesn't...
I made her shudder.
So it doesn't affect those that are physically in the area. So if you're physically in the area, it's not going to affect you at all. It's those people that are watching this recorded footage. Because of the damaging effect of any recorded footage, SCP-895 is kept in a cell 100 meters below the ground. No recording equipment can be brought within a 10-meter or 30-yard red zone. That's what they call it. Not the fun football kind of red zone.
I love that channel. Also, I think it's hilarious that the way you defeat this SCP that's a coffin is to bury it.
I mean, but it's not necessarily buried. It's 100 meters underground in a secure location. And you can't bring any equipment unless you have express permission to bring it in. And,
from the SCP Foundation.
Right.
Gotcha.
Any personnel exhibiting unusual behavior or signs of psychological trauma are screened immediately and, if necessary, removed from the site or terminated. When I read terminated, my brain goes to... Murdered.
Yep.
But it could mean they were just fired. I can't say. It's pretty vague. But to me, terminated is murdered. Okay? So, thoughts, discuss, go.
I think that one's pretty interesting. I think the first one's more interesting. I think these really revolve around not using your technology with things. So, it makes me curious as to if this SCP existed. Obviously, it's like, a fictional thing. But if this SCP existed prior to everyone having a cell phone in their pocket or security cameras, like, say, like early 1900s, maybe even 1800s, what effect would it have had, if any, on anyone? Except maybe if someone was standing next to it, like, drawing a picture, and then they look down and all of a sudden it's like, I drew boners everywhere.
Oh, God. I drew my grandma. No, okay.
Oh, gross.
This one is short but sweet, I think. Not sweet like it's cute. It's my favorite page that I've come across so far on the Foundation website because it has this really cool GIF or video at the top right of the screen. So it's like this video that streams on the top right of the actual SCP page, and it has the current date and the time that you're on that site, which freaked me out because I was like,
that's
what
hilarious.
The fuck? And it says like live footage. And what it is, it's like a live feed of these tunnels, quote unquote tunnels, that this SCP is located in. And
which SCP is it, Robin?
895. So SCP-895.
Oh, it's still the same one?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we moved on to the next one.
No. So this SCP-895, the coffin, is down underground in these tunnels. And so this page has this really cool video on it where it says live feed. It has has the date, has the time. It's so fucking cool. And this video, every once in a while, the lights will dim or go out. And when it comes back on, something fucked up is on the screen. Like something shows up in those tunnels that's really fucked up. And then the lights will go out again and come back and they're gone. And as I was doing my script, I was on there for like an hour, maybe more than an hour, and I saw at least 5 different things.
I was going to say, are there different things each time?
It was really fucking cool. And it's
a lot of effort to be put into a page.
It is a lot of effort for that one page. I don't know how they did it to have like the date and time, and it looked so fucking cool. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Just check out that page.
You know, the easiest way to do it is if it was all real.
Oh God, please no.
Just saying.
Because there was some weird stuff. It's just really cool to look at. You guys might get bored, but I found it thoroughly entertaining. But yeah, so I just enjoyed this one because I thought that was so cool. Anyway, so this last SCP that I'm going to cover is SCP-035. And
I'm 035. That's how old I am.
It's classified as Keter, which is the more difficult of them to contain. It was found in an abandoned house in Venice in the 1800s, and it's to be kept sealed in a glass case no fewer than 3 inches thick. That's really fucking thick for a sheet of glass. This glass encasement is then placed in a steel, iron, and lead-lined room at all times. Doors are triple locked at all times, save for the movement of personnel when they have to go in and out or whatever. 2 guards are posted outside the room at all times, as well as a trained psychologist on site. The glass case, gets replaced every 2 weeks, and the personnel are rotated to limit long-term exposure to this particular entity. So what it is it's a white porcelain mask. At times, it portrays the face of comedy, other times of tragedy. I don't know if you can imagine those, like, when, like, theater symbols, you know,
yeah, I
they
know
have
what
the
you mean,
two
like
masks.
the masks
yes.
where it's, like, smiling and laughing and
right.
the crying one.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So sometimes it's the laughing one, sometimes it's the crying one. And it seems pretty harmless when you just think about the fact that it's just a mask. Loads of people have masks that look similar, you know? This one, though, not so harmless, because it seems that any visual evidence of this SCP, whether it be photos, video recordings, even drawings, they all change when the expression of the mask changes, which is so strange. You could have a video of it smiling, and the next time you go back, it'll be crying because that's just what it is at that time, you know? Apparently, a highly corrosive and degenerative viscous liquid seeps from the eyes and mouth of this mask constantly, and anything that touches the liquid starts to slowly decay. And it doesn't just rot away, it kind of decays and dissolves into a puddle of that same corrosive goop. Glass seems to be the material that decays the slowest, which is why they have it in such a thick layer of glass. The corrosion affects living beings and inanimate objects alike. Once you touch it, there's no coming back from it. The origins of the substance are unknown. There's no sign as to where it even seeps from, because you can see it dripping like from the front, but there's no signs of it from the back, which is weird. Anyone within 5 to 6 feet of this mask have visual contact with it seem to be compelled to put it on.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, social distance people, you know, stay further than 6 feet away from this thing. Those within 10 meters, or about 30 feet, report feeling a sense of unease, claiming to hear an unintelligible whispering. And that's not even in the same room with it. That's just 30 meters away from it, or 30 feet away from it. Though these incidents have been reported, there have been no sounds that have ever actually been recorded coming from the thing at all. But people keep saying they hear whispering or giggling, weird things like that. Others that work around the containment area see a drop in morale. They also have unusually high suicide rates, regardless of whether they have had contact with the mask or not. And that's just the people that are working around it. When someone puts the mask on, it seems to be that SCP-035 produces this brainwave pattern that overrides that of the host, resulting in the brain death of said host. So it just takes over, right? like a parasite. It just takes over the host, possesses it, if you will.
Okay.
Even though it takes over the host, the body doesn't become immune to that decay because of that liquid. It still decays because of it.
So it put on a new suit, but it's also slowly melting its new suit.
Right. If anything, by wearing the mask, it decays even faster. And the difference is that they eventually become these decayed mummies instead of goop. And even the host, if the host experiences like any type of bodily harm or damage, the SCP still remains in control of that body. Even if the body decays to the point where it is no longer capable of motion or movement, this thing is still in the driver's seat. Like, it takes over your mind. And it can talk, Super weird. I just thought that was really creepy.
So why don't they just sacrifice someone to it so they can talk to it?
They do.
That's fucking creepy.
Luckily for animals, wearing the mask hasn't been found to have any effect on animals. What's stranger still is it's been said to be able to possess anything with a humanoid shape to it, including mannequins and statues, and even creepier still, dead people.
That's pretty awful.
Yeah. Through conversations with possessed hosts, because they do perform experiments, researchers have learned a number of things about this particular SCP. It's highly intelligent and charismatic, capable of flattering those that it communicates with. And it is also found to have a photographic memory. So this thing is just super smart, it's a cult leader, okay? This thing is a cult leader. You can guess from this that it is also incredibly manipulative. Through these conversations, it's able to alter the interviewer's mental or psychological state. What's even scarier is it's a highly sadistic entity and has been known to push others to take their own lives, or it even turns people into its own little mindless servant. This is all through verbal communication. It just talks to these people, though it has been determined that it is capable of telepathy, which is probably why people that work around it also get affected or something like that. And this telepathy works with or without a host. It doesn't have to have a host in order to get into people's minds. And I imagine it's like the chick from The Exorcist, where they get into your head and then they find the information that it wants.
Right.
And then
to torment you with it.
Exactly. It uses it against you. And I think that's how it drives people to take their own lives. I just think that these are really cool. Props to everyone who writes these. They're just very in-depth and they're really cool. They're fun. They're interesting to read. Some are genuinely terrifying. The SCP Foundation website is definitely a cool place to read a bunch of this stuff if you guys are interested. I just like these types of things. I think they're really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I find these super interesting because, one, it's like they sound like things that you've heard before, but two, it's really interesting to hear things that people have created. And I kind of brought it up with like the whole creepypasta thing.
Yeah.
Like, I love the creative outlet. I hate it when people decide that they're going to take it and say this thing is absolutely real. But I think that's a sign of good writing where you include enough detail in it where you're like, holy shit, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Where people start to think like, this could be real. I think I heard a story about that. So.
Well, like the one about the coffin with the video cameras and stuff. Like, they went out of their way to create that cool video and it just pulled me in and I was like, this is fucking cool.
Yeah.
SCP
stuff is super, super fun. So, yeah, I love when you cover these ones. The first time you covered it, I was like, I don't know. But since then, it's been one of my favorite things when you go back to it. I think it's the second time you've gone back to it. So, or this is the first time you've gone back to it. Second time you've covered it as a topic.
Yeah.
But we've talked about the other ones that you've like read before. So, super, super cool. And yeah, thank you for covering it again.
Yeah, thanks.
So we did this last time too. Let us know which SCPs you guys find super interesting. I know a lot of you in the story suggestions on Discord have tossed out your favorite SCPs as well. So keep those coming. We definitely want to see those so we can go and look at them and sort of let that, stew in our brain while we try and sleep in the future. It's always a fun time. So yeah good work, Robin.
Thanks. Good work, Adam.
Oh, thank you. I think that's just about everything for episode 137. So if you have a story you would like to share with us, whether it's creepy, paranormal, spiritual, spooky, maybe it's even true crime, maybe it's just coincidental where you got scared by something and it turns out it was nothing, we definitely want to hear those stories. And if you would like us to share them, we will share them on the Storytime episodes, which are live Tuesdays, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at youtube.com/Scaryish or twitch.tv/Scaryish podcast. Or you can just listen to those episodes on Friday when they come out. And those are our Storytime episodes where we read the stories that you folks have sent to us. If you would like to send us a story, please email storytime@scaryish.com, or you can go to our website, scaryish.com, and click on Contact Us, or you can hit us up on any of our social medias if that's how you would prefer to get a hold of us. Facebook is facebook.com/ScarishPodcast, Twitter is @ScarishPod, and Instagram is @ScarishPodcast. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, or maybe sign up for Patreon so they can get one of those sweet-ass charms you've been posting about lately, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/ScarishPodcast. Those are monthly donations. There's a few different tiers. We have Mothman keychains right now for Badge of Honor patrons and above. I only have a couple left, so get them while you can. And then you can go to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/ScarishPodcast. Those are one-time donations. All your donations go to helping us keep the podcast going, keeping making more content, and upgrade our studio setup. We've been able to do a lot with our little office here thanks to all of you. Adam was able to get new recording equipment, stuff like that, and we really couldn't do it without all of you.
We sincerely couldn't, so thank you to all of you who support us, listen to us, watch us. It means so much to us that people that we've never met before have become almost like household names to us because they've reached out to us so much, and that doesn't mean that you are required to do that in order for us to appreciate you. There are people whose names we've never said before that have probably listened to every episode we've ever recorded, and we appreciate you, ghost listeners, as well.
If you sit there and you have us in your ear holes, we appreciate you.
We really do, because I can barely tolerate editing the episode because I can't stand my voice, so the fact that some of you
I can't stand your voice either,
is touching to me. I hate your face so much. So I think that's just about everything we have for episode 137. So Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys soon.